And then the second takeaway that is Cyrus Allen.
Oh, you stole my thunder.
Is that do you want me to save Cyrus Allen for you?
You can give a little preview, but I've got a lot to say about Cyrus Allen. You got to be detailed, precise, and informed.
That's DPI.
Welcome back, everybody, to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that is Tyler over there. And it's been a minute since we've done long-form content, but we've been busy at training camp. If you've seen any of our short-form stuff, you know that we have spent a lot of time at Chiefs training camp. And don't worry, we have all of our takes, all of our observations, all of our predictions coming later in this video. But first, we wanted to cover some other stories briefly before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video. And we're going to update you guys on the Chiefs' new stadium. They released some cool renderings that Tyler wants to discuss. And then I am wearing my Jahmyr Gibbs jersey so that we can talk about his hold in, especially now that Bijan Robinson has just signed the most lucrative running back contract in NFL history. And then finally, with the Hall of Fame game coming up in just 2 days, as the time of recording, one day at the time of viewing, we are going to preview the Hall of Fame game with some great storylines so that you're not just watching the game blind. But football is back. We are so excited to talk about all of that and more. But I'll pass it to Tyler for the Chiefs Stadium update of the week.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen by now, the Kansas City Chiefs have released official renderings of their new stadium. It's not so much news, but I do want to give my take on it because I spend a lot of time studying stadiums and renderings and timelines of stadiums. And I do want to give some fans a little bit of hope because I see a lot of attention out there about how it looks just like the Raiders stadium and it looks like this cookie cutter stadium, but there's a lot more to it than it first appears. Zach, do you have those renderings?
I do.
So this is the exterior version. I'll talk a little bit about that after a minute, but we do see a little bit of Arrowhead right there on the red, but this is the image that I want to focus on right there. So people will see this one and be like, oh, it's Manica, just like the Raiders stadium. It looks just like the Raiders stadium. It's not unique. It's horrible. But here's the thing. Manica and Arrowhead have a few very distinct similarities. Number one, a tri-level stadium. It's not like SoFi where there's like 5 little levels. There's 3 distinct levels. Arrowhead and Manica both. Number two, a majority of the upper level has a distinct difference between the number of seats on the sideline and the number of seats on the end zone. Manica and Arrowhead. With that, kind of a little bonus point on the upper level, the upper level concourse splits the upper level seating bowl, Arrowhead and Manica. And then the final thing is a majority of the suite level now is on the sideline with the mezzanine level. The mezzanine level is where the club level is, and all of the suites are on the sideline. You see that predominant on the left side is more predominant suites and clubs compared to the right side. Arrowhead's the same way. That's where the broadcast suites are, the signature suites are predominantly on the right side. So tri-level stadium, majority of the seats being on the sideline and a distinct lesser amount of seats on the end zone. And the mezzanine level is where the club level is, with one side having much more club than the other sideline. Arrowhead and Manica both have those distinct qualities, and there you see that as well. And so just being Manica, you get a lot more of Arrowhead in the renderings than you would think, because now getting into the finer details, you have the lower level bowl go right up to the end zone. Unlike SoFi, Dallas, and Vegas, where it has suites all around the field, this Arrowhead and this new stadium has seats right up onto the field. And that's a huge advantage for both the noise, for both intimidation of the crowd. and also the capacity. This is going to have 70,000 seats. The other thing that you can point out that's very Arrowhead is the corner of the upper level. See how it peaks up? That's a very Arrowhead distinction. And again, that's a minor thing, but it's those little details that Manica is incorporating from the old stadium into the new stadium. The thing that I love about the new stadium from a staff perspective now is I'm seeing at least four entrances for the players. I love it. If you don't know something about the current Arrowhead Stadium, is the drum line and the red coders that like welcome the team out on the field have to go up into the crowd at current Arrowhead Stadium, and security actually has to block off fans from going down to their seats in that particular aisle. That problem will be no more at the new stadium, and I cannot wait for it. It's Manica understanding both the details of Arrowhead and the just the event operation struggles that old Arrowhead has that won't be in the new stadium. So I'm so big on the stadium. When you look at the details of the stadium, it's very different from the Raiders Stadium. Raiders Stadium was created by Manica, I understand, but this is very similar to the old Arrowhead Stadium, and I love it. I think they hit a home run on this.
That point kind of reminds me of what we learned when we went to Buffalo to interview some Bills fans, and they talked about how, you know, they had a factoid ready that the new stadium will have more bathrooms per fan than any stadium in the NFL, right? Like, what a weird stat to know, but
yeah.
You know, it's very Arrowhead to be like, finally, I don't have to get blocked from my end zone seat because of the lack of planning of a stadium built in 1974. I am also a big fan of this stadium for a lot of the reasons that Tyler said, but also, you know, I think some of the comments from Mark Donovan, sadly, I didn't ask him about the stadium when I met him at training camp, but some of the comments from Mark Donovan about how they're going to incorporate some noise enhancing technology and the fact that they still truly do care about the fans. And I think the biggest thing that proves they do care about the fans is the lower bowl still featuring general admission tickets all the way around. That is huge, guys. Because so many of these stadiums incorporate suites at the lower level. Like, they want those courtside big-time players and people on the sideline. And New Arrowhead is refusing to cave to that element of it, and that is really, really good to see for me as just a fan, right? I'm not on staff like Tyler. I'm just a fan, and I enjoy sitting in the lower bowl and getting loud. So that is certainly a positive. I also really like the Jumbotron design because it is improved with these huge widescreens, and it seems like there's going to be additional replays for the fans on the middle, because I always thought it was difficult to crane my neck and watch the upper. If you're sitting in the end zone, like let's say you're sitting here, you have to watch all the way over here, or you have to crane your neck behind to get a good replay. I think these are going to be excellent additions for those end zone fans, and I often sit in the end zone. So I think a lot of fan improvements and a lot of care went into designing the stadium, and that's what Chiefs fans should be focusing on.
Yeah, and actually the big screens is even kind of a fourth little point that Manica and Arrowhead both do, and it's that side ends that end zone big screens. Arrowhead is very iconic for that oval shaped Jumbotron above the upper level, and you see it's not an oval, it's more of a rectangle, but that very distinct, not overbearing. Like when you look at the Patriots' new big screen, it's just like insane. Just watch it on TV at that point, anywhere in the stadium. You don't have the overbearing big screen here, but you still have a large enough, distinct big screen. Just another little nuanced detail of Arrowhead and Manica being similar on its own.
Speaking of nuanced detail that really speaks to how much they cared about the fans when they designed these renderings, check out this picture. This picture shows the new parking lot for New Arrowhead, which will have 2,000 additional spots. Old Arrowhead has 18,000 in Truman Sports Complex. New Arrowhead's going to have 20,000 alone. And they're a stadium without the Royals right next to them. That is a huge factoid for Chiefs fans that know how big the tailgating scene is for Arrowhead Stadium. I know that they're going to add some sort of fan zone or fan experience area as well, But for a long time, for basically the majority of the Kansas City Chiefs' existence, the fan experience has been tailgating in the parking lot and going in to the stadium. So the fact that they're preserving that fan experience means they care about the legacy of Arrowhead. Didn't mean to steal your thunder on that one, Tyler. I love that they included the parking lots in these renderings.
No, absolutely. And one detail that I'm kind of just now noticing as well is if you go to a Chiefs game, the exiting of the parking lot is a nightmare right now. But as I'm seeing this fan walkway to the corner of a stadium, I'm wondering if it's almost going to be like 4 parking lot sections to help get traffic out better.
I mean,
Because with Arrowhead, it's like you've got a little parking lots, but you're really going out 6 different entrances. I'm wondering if this is going to be more chunked than current Arrowhead to get so you have a smaller amount of cars trying to exit said chunk.
I think that's entirely possible, especially when you look here. This is a tunnel under the road. This looks like where the fan experience is going to be. Look at all these tents, right? These awnings.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like the fan experience is going to be right next to the stadium, which will be very, very cool. But it seems like there's a tunnel under the road to help expedite maybe the exiting of the stadium, which, as I would say, that leaving the stadium is about as bad as the bathroom situation at Buffalo. It is truly a nightmare. You can be stuck there for hours after a playoff game ends. And as you know, playoff games are packed. People stay late. So nobody leaves early. There's no trickle out. If you get stuck in a bad parking spot, you will be there for hours after the game. So I think that the Chiefs are also trying to address that, which if you're going to build a new stadium, I would hope that they're addressing, the top 5 biggest concerns of Chiefs fans. And so far, I feel like they're doing that.
They definitely are. There are 2 things that Mark Donovan said in his initial press conference to roll out the renderings of the rejected renovation. Mark Donovan confirmed in that, like, all the way years ago at the beginning, he said that Clark Hunt said nothing less than 70,000 in terms of the renovation, or if there's a new one. And the initial renovation project also addressed the parking situation to get a smoother flow of traffic. We know he's already kept the promise of nothing under 70. And so with there being multiple parking spots, that that's something on their mind as well. And so I imagine that they are going to address the flow of traffic on game day as well.
But and I think that's a really good point too. Just a fun sidebar about Mark Donovan before we go off to the next topic. He was at Chiefs training camp talking to fans, and I will give a lot of credit to Mark Donovan. Not only is he doing a great job on the stadium, he's doing a great job at improving the fan experience for, fans of the Chiefs or fans of the NFL football that you just go to training camp. He actually answered a few questions about how potentially frustrating it was to host the FIFA World Cup at Arrowhead this year, which we were not entitled to at all. We were just shaking hands and taking pictures of him. But I thought that was just an interesting sidebar. If you want to see us meeting Mark Donovan, it is available on our TikTok. We posted all of our short form TikToks and training camp content there. It's also on YouTube as well, but make sure you check those out. There's some great tips and tricks.
And for context as to what Zach asked him and what his answer was, the FIFA World Cup just happened. It just went away. And Zach, being friendly with Mark Donovan, who's also being friendly to everyone, he goes, I bet you're excited to not have to share the stadium anymore. Kind of a softball question. I think I'd rather host 7 concerts. And we're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he said loaded questions, and then, gave us that whole
You could tell there was something yet he had to be careful in his words. He was thinking about his answer there, just off that question.
No, it was awesome. Definitely more than we got from Brett Veach. No offense to Brett Veach, of course, we love Brett Veach. Just don't think he's a very fan-facing guy. If you're gonna have a guy in your organization that's fan-facing, I think the president's the right move for that rather than the general manager. But Mark Donovan certainly is. I would say a very pleasant person to interact with for sure.
Absolutely.
But moving on to our second topic of the day, it's the reason why I'm wearing this outfit. I love Jahmyr Gibbs, but he has not gotten any highlights in training camp. We've had to suffer through Isaiah Pacheco. and Sione Vaki. Not that I don't like Isaiah Pacheco, but when you juxtapose him with Jahmyr Gibbs, there's a big difference, right? And that's because Jahmyr Gibbs is holding in. Similar to what Alex Anzalone did last year, he wants a new deal, even though he's under contract for the next 2 seasons, Tyler, believe it or not. He has 1 year left on his rookie deal, and he's got a 5th-year option, making him under contract through 2027. So I think that's a very interesting hold-in. It's very well-timed, too. The only reason that he's holding in right now is because there's another man who was drafted in the first round that was also up for an extension, and that man's name is Bijan Robinson. And as of the recording of this video, he has been paid $22.25 million average annual value, the highest AAV of any running back in NFL history, yada, yada, yada. We're going to hear that a lot for every position group as the NFL continues to move up the salary calendar. They're just growing exponentially, and so are the contracts, right? So is the cap. But that's higher than Saquon Barkley's $20 million AAV and Christian McCaffrey's $19 million AAV. And even Kenneth Walker, the Super Bowl MVP, is at $14.35 million AAV. So, Tyler, do you think that Bijan Robinson and therefore Jahmyr Gibbs, who's probably going to get a little bit more than this, is worth that kind of money?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing that I was surprised is just how much his AAV was. Like I said, you had mentioned Saquon being at 20 million. And so I was expecting Robinson's to match around 20 million, maybe get up to 21 million. I was not expecting 22 and a quarter. And on top of that, 37 million, let me go back real quick. It was a $75 million contract in total. That gets you 3 years, 75 million, and 37 million is guaranteed right up front. But Bijan Robinson's upside is so impressive that it's more than Saquon, it's more than CMC. The Atlanta Falcons need Bijan. He is, I think, the MVP of that offense, even more so than the quarterback, because the run game is their primary focal point with the offense. Other teams like the Eagles and the 49ers do have a really strong passing game. So if you're going to have the running game being your focal point by far, you need to pay your running back something that equates to that. And I think they did. And I think it's very fair that it's above Kenneth Walker, because the Chiefs is going to be the opposite. The running game is not going to be the focal point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, Bijan's certainly worth that much to the Falcons organization. I mean, he is their franchise player. A lot of people can't actually name another player on the Atlanta Falcons right now other than Bijan Robinson. That's how good he is. With that being said, your point kind of about focal points of the offense and how much the offense runs through Bijan. I mean, he has the most yards of anybody since being drafted. The second player on that list is Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's only because he split time his rookie year with David Montgomery. Is Jahmyr Gibbs, who may not be as much of a focal point only because the Lions have so many offensive weapons, is he then worth probably a small raise of this contract, in your opinion?
It depends on what we're going off of, the reason for it being a raise or not a raise. If we're going off the focal point of the offense, I would say no, because the Lions are going to, yes, have him as the running back one. But I think the Lions do a really good balance of running and passing. But now if we're going to talk about production, yes. I think Gibbs does have better production than Bijan Robinson. And that might be a hot take, or maybe that's just an underrated or an unknown take. But I think production-wise, Gibbs is worth a small raise. Not a big raise, but a small raise. But if we're basing it off a focal point, no, I would keep Robinson at a higher AAV.
Well, I mean, certainly in the touchdown department, you can make the argument that Gibbs has more production. They were drafted in the same year, in the same round, and Jahmyr Gibbs has 15 more touchdowns than Bijan Robinson, a guy that supposedly has the offense running through him. I don't debate that at all. I'm just saying that. He does have the offense running through him. He's got, 125 more carries than Gibbs, Bijan does. And Gibbs still outpaces him by 15 touchdowns. I think that's significant, right? Because how much do we
Mhm.
value carries and yards? At what point do we value 15 touchdowns more than 400 more rushing yards, which is all Robinson has on Gibbs? Pretty
Mhm.
ridiculous. And I think he's absolutely worth it. Gibbs has been such a glue player for this offense. The O-line was actually quite bad at rushing efficiency last year. That's why the Lions brought in Cade Mays. That's why they brought in Blake Miller. They overhauled this entire offensive line. That's why they moved Penei Sewell to left tackle and got rid of Taylor Decker, who was not a very good run blocker. The Lions overhauled every position to help Gibbs, and even still, Gibbs was that much better with a bad O-line. I think that he'll only improve health, health being a factor there if he can stay healthy.
I do want to go back to one thing you said at the beginning of this part of the segment is you said hold in. Obviously, we understand hold out. What is a hold in?
A hold in is kind of a new thing in the NFL because Jahmyr Gibbs is not practicing, but he is on the sidelines with the team. He's just not suiting up. It's very similar to what Alex Anzalone did. Alex Anzalone was just kind of like battling a phantom hamstring injury to say that he was not going to practice. Gibbs is not even doing that. He's just showing up on the sideline and not practicing. So a typical holdout would be I'm not reporting to training camp and I'm getting fined every day that I'm not there. Kind of like what Chris Jones did in week 1 of 2023. He did not play in week 1 against Detroit and was a big reason why the Chiefs ended up losing that game. He was signed the next week, right? So that's a typical holdout. But a hold in, the player's much more involved with the team. And that's what Gibbs is doing, right? And it's kind of a newer phenomenon in the NFL.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. I wonder how that affects the locker room, or does it at all?
I think it has to a little bit, right? Because none of the other players on the Lions roster held out. They're all under contract. Look at Jamison Williams. Look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, who, by the way, are now outside of the top 10 AAV in wide receiver contracts because of Zay Flowers' extension. I think those are stellar deals from Detroit, and maybe those guys are looking at Gibbs a little bit resentfully because he's holding in when those guys didn't for more money. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams certainly could have gotten a few more dollars if they held out because of how important they are to this roster, but they didn't. And now they're looking at their teammate doing that for essentially what is a few extra bucks, right? But I think that you could also look at it in a way that running back is such a fickle position in the NFL. One injury and your career is essentially over. I mean, look at what happened to Isaiah Pacheco, who is now a Detroit Lion. He broke his leg and the Chiefs just cast him off like nothing, and he's now signing league minimum deals to prove it. And he was a 1,000-yard rusher his rookie year. He thought he had a long career ahead of him and just never panned out because all it takes is one injury to delay or to take away a running back's prime. And so maybe they look at him and say, you know what, his career's not going to be as long as mine as a wide receiver. I'm going to let him get his bread. So I think that there's those two elements of it. And I think that culturally the Lions are a solid enough team to where this won't have a negative effect on the season. They're all fighting for the same goal, right? It's not like he's holding out on a bad team and it's just going to derail the season. They all want to win the big game at the end of the season. So, and I think they know that Gibbs knows that, especially if he's around the team. It certainly helps as they can talk to him and get into his mind a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's really good. I think this is honestly the perfect situation for Detroit because, number one, he's still around, so he's still taking the notes. He's hearing from the coaches and all that. But then when you actually get into the reps, it's Isaiah Pacheco, who I think is a great running back. He's getting reps to learn the system better and work with the offense. And if you do decide to split reps in any capacity or maybe bring in Pacheco as like a third down back perhaps, then he's just getting more reps to work with the offense. I think that's great. I think that's great for you guys.
Yeah, and it also, with the amount of training camp injuries this year, it's also preventing Gibbs from getting hurt in a meaningless training camp drill, which we'll get to that in a second, guys. I promise. We have a lot to talk about related to Kansas City in that regard, but I would hate to see him, tweak something non-contact in training camp. Lions aren't going to play him in the preseason, so I just hope that he can be ready by the start of the NFL season and be ramped up enough, which I trust that a guy with Jahmyr Gibbs' work ethic and athleticism will be ready. And I think the coaching staff will be too. Dan Campbell has said on numerous occasions that I'm not worried at all. And I think that's the right take to have at this point in the offseason. Obviously, later on, we could adjust that take. But right now, I'm not worried about it because Dan Campbell isn't worried about it either.
Okay, I like that.
But I think actually the time is now to talk about Chiefs training camp. Tyler, you spent 4 days watching Chiefs practices. I spent 3. And we have lots of observations to share with you guys about that. But I just spent a lot of time yapping about the Lions. I'm going to let Tyler take the observations first. Tyler, what are your big takeaways from Chiefs training camp?
So my big takeaways both relates to the offense, and it's Mahomes first. I'll talk about that. That was one thing that I really wanted to watch is, does he look under control? Is he putting extra weight on his right leg to take away from his left leg? And I don't see that. You would not expect that this guy tore his ACL at the end of the previous season. He looks great. He's hit some people in strides. We posted a video just today about him hitting Kelsey in stride during offensive install. He's hit Xavier Worthy for some strides, which was our big concern last year. Obviously, it's training camp, so we can't say 100% is going to translate to the field. But right now, he's looking good. He's looking healthy. And it's super exciting. It's super promising. It's absolutely looking like he's going to be ready to go week 1. Pending that, God forbid, there's not another injury to that. And then the second takeaway that is Cyrus Allen.
Oh, you stole my thunder.
Is that do you want me to save Cyrus Allen for you?
You can give a little preview, but I've got a lot to say about Cyrus Allen.
All right, I'll give a preview. Cyrus Allen is a 4th-round draft pick, and he is going to make the team. He is not in jeopardy of not making the team, which most 4th-round picks make the team anyway, but that's kind of about all I'm going to say. He's looking good. And thank God that he did not actually tear his ACL as fans first thought he did on Saturday. It looked like a bad injury, shin bruise, best case scenario. I think he was limited today and yesterday, but he's going to be good. Rice is also going to be good. He was another guy that went down on Saturday. But Cyrus Allen's good. So because you're going to take Cyrus Allen, I'll also talk about the offensive line. It's looking like Jalen Moore and an undrafted free agent are going to be that starters at right tackle. Originally, S.A. Pulle. I learned his pronunciation today. It's Pulle. Pulle is starting to get second team reps after the first week. He was getting first team reps. But Jalen Moore is still in that rotation with first team reps. That's something to watch in the upcoming preseason game, is really who is getting that right tackle reps and who's doing well at right tackle.
Yeah, I think I'm going to touch on a few of the things that you mentioned. I do think that Patrick Mahomes looks ahead of schedule. I'll say that, coming off of an ACL injury, but I would not describe his play as good so far in training camp. And maybe this is just consistent with what he's been doing the last couple of years, but I think the accuracy from a clean pocket is still too inconsistent. Mahomes has a much lower EPA per play when he's in the pocket. Obviously, that's because when he rolls out, he makes big plays. But I still think that, it's an interesting factoid that I don't think is actually going to correct itself this year because he's still clearly getting used to throwing from a stable platform. Whether it's pushing off that leg or whatever's going on, he's missed a lot of those in-rhythm throws. But when he has to rely solely on his arm when he's rolling out, he's shown incredible accuracy, especially when targeting Cyrus Allen. I think that, Mahomes still has missed Xavier Worthy a few times and has missed some of the other starting receivers, but a player he has not missed was Cyrus Allen, and that was what stood out to me, was Mahomes' chemistry with everybody else is still kind of looking shaky, but whenever he targeted Cyrus Allen, not only was the throw quite accurate, but Cyrus Allen made the catch. There was an unbelievable one-handed grab over the middle, full extension, that has been posted on social media. There's another back shoulder play that was just as impressive. And there's some deep balls too that have hit Cyrus Allen in stride. I think that he is absolutely in contention to start for Kansas City at wide receiver. in 3 receiver sets with Rice, Worthy, and Cyrus Allen. I think his main competition is Tyquan Thornton, who has not blown me away, quite honestly. In training camp, there have been some bad drops that Cyrus Allen just simply doesn't have. So somebody to keep an eye on in those preseason games without a doubt, especially that he avoided a major injury. And one thing to note, that major injury was on a punt drill. I get it. Fifth round receivers typically play special teams, and it was day 4 of training camp. But my goodness, got to keep these guys that look like they have another gear in the NFL from getting hurt in meaningless drills where they run into another player. That would have been a crappy way to lose your rookie season, especially when you're looking that promising. I know a lot of Chiefs fans were mad. I was a little peeved because I understand Dave Tobe's perspective. Is like, this guy has to play special teams, guys. He's a 5th round receiver. But man, it's just a really, really crappy situation for both sides. I'm just glad that it can all blow over now. But I think that my second observation would be the secondary. I was looking a lot at the secondary because it's been overhauled completely, right? 2 new starting corners, one of them being Mansour Delane, one of them being L'Jarius Sneed right now. We will see Noel Williams rotate in there as well. And another thing with the safeties, Jaden Hicks is not getting any first-team reps. We didn't see him with the ones. Nobody else has seen him with the ones. It's been Aloy Gilman and Chamari Connor and other guys, like truly anybody else but Jaden Hicks has repped in that role, replacing he was kind of a starter last year, but replacing Brian Cook's production. I don't know what's going on, but Hicks does not seem to be a shoo-in at all to get meaningful playing time to begin the season. And 8-year veteran Aloy Gilman certainly seems to be a guy that Steve Spagnuolo is relying on a lot. So that's a name on the defensive side to keep an eye on. I also watched, based on where Tyler and I were sitting for most of the days, I watched a lot of the defensive line. And I thought that 2 players that stood out to me were Felix Anudike-Uzomah and Peter Woods. Peter Woods looks like a lot better of a pick right now than he did back on Draft Fest night when Tyler and I reacted initially. We were like, I see why they did that. You need somebody in the middle, and Woods looks like the total package. So explosive. The coaches love him, and he's been making plays in team and looked really, really good and polished, like a veteran, honestly, in his drills. And Felix also looks good. He's winning reps against that UDFA that you mentioned that's repping at starting right tackle. Guy hasn't been able to contain FAU. So could a rare 4th-year breakout happen for the first-round bust? We will see, but it's certainly looking up for the guy who has had injuries and the depth chart really derail his NFL career to this point.
No, absolutely. The one fear I have with Cyrus Allen, and I'll talk about defense too, is this is the same conversation we had about Jalen Royals last year. And then he was great in training camp. He looked kind of like him and Tyquan Thornton looked like Rashee Rice level. And then Tyquan Thornton was fine, and we just didn't see Jalen Royals. He just disappeared. I'm worried that Andy Reid is going to continue with his trend of not playing many rookies. The hopeful side is that maybe we've got 2 4th, 5th round draft picks out of this year and last year with Royals and Allen that will do well now. If that is the case, then maybe Allen's taken his year off, and Royals, who looked great last year, is back. So something that I both fear and am hopeful on. With the defense now, yes, Peter Woods is making me a lot more confident than I did on draft night. I was not celebrating Peter Woods on draft night. I'll be the first to admit that. But yeah, he's looking great. Maybe I should post that reaction video sometime. I'll keep that in the drafts, but at some point I'll post that reaction video because it is really funny. But another guy that you didn't mention, though, is Xavier Sneed. Xavier Sneed was getting some first-team reps also opposite of Mansour Delane. That could be because Spags likes Sneed and his production, and in his defense, he's going to be really good, the same way he was prior. Oppositely, he could just be a fill-in guy because he knows Spags' defense, and he's going to be teaching the guys that are going to be better.
Are you thinking about L'Jarius Sneed? You're calling him Xavier Sneed.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest. It's 9:30 p.m. at the time of recording, and my coffee's been worn off for over 12 hours. That's exactly who I'm talking about.
Okay.
I do apologize for that blunder. Yes, L'Jarius Sneed is
Yes.
1,000% who I'm talking about.
Yes,
My
he was
coffee's
getting
been
those
worn out for
first
over
team
12
reps,
hours.
which, and
Yes.
I am a public and adamant L'Jarius Sneed hater. I don't like him. And I truly think that when the rubber meets the road, it will be very apparent that Sneed doesn't have NFL speed anymore. But he's repping in those first teams, and Spags really likes him. The familiarity is there. So we will see. We'll see how that turns out.
And despite my name blunder there, everything I said, I feel like you would agree with me on.
100%.
L'Jarius Sneed was getting first team reps opposite of Mansour Delane. Could be because Spags thinks he's going to be really good and a day one starter. Could also be because L'Jarius Sneed just knows Spags' defense, and he needs a model to teach the rookies that will eventually replace him.
Right. And I didn't see L'Jarius Sneed make a play, but I also didn't see him get like absolutely cooked either. So I think that if you're invisible as a corner, that's probably better. But I think that's emblematic of what he will be this season. L'Jarius Sneed will not make plays for you, but maybe he will have a high enough floor to not, completely throw the defense away if he's on the field, kind of deal. And so it's really going to have to be weighing the option is do you want a more risky playmaker, or do you want a more stable veteran? And maybe that's why they brought him in the first place. But speaking of stable veterans, I'm going to offer a counter argument to your take about Cyrus Allen and Jalen Royals. Let me know what you think. So last year we got the hype for Jalen Royals. I was certainly a proponent of it. And then he plays, I think, a single snap. One snap in the NFL in his rookie year. And the reason why that's not the case this year is because last year the Chiefs were experimenting with bringing in veteran wide receivers. Okay? They brought in Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, all of these guys that are over-the-hill veterans that they continue to play over Jalen Royals. This year, they brought Thornton back, and that's it. So behind Worthy and Rice, there's really only one veteran of buffer. Unless you're counting Nico Remigio, who I think is a return specialist only, the Chiefs do not value his receiving ability whatsoever. And so in reality, one of these players is going to have the opportunity to step up and play a lot of snaps, especially if there is an injury. And with Xavier Worthy's history, and he's currently listed at $165 on the Chiefs website for the roster, I think there's no doubt that at least one of him or Rashee Rice misses time, and one of these guys has to step up. They have no choice. And so to me, that indicates, at least that the coaching staff is willing to have more of a youth movement than they were in the past, which bodes well for guys like Allen and Royals, because in the past, they kept signing veterans and pushing these guys down the depth chart. They're not doing that this year, agree?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great take, honestly. And I hope you're right, because what we saw last year in Royals was really good wide receiver football. And it's the same stuff we're seeing in Cyrus Allen right now. I hope you're right, and I think it's a great take, and I think it's very plausible that you are right.
Yeah,
I don't really have a counter to it.
Yeah, I think the only counter is that Andy Reid has a history. That's it. And so will Andy Reid buck his history? And that's another thing that I want to talk about Chiefs training camp. I think he's going to. And you're like, why? Why will Andy Reid decide this year he's going to buck the history? Well, first of all, it's his worst year in over a decade of coaching football. So that could be a wake-up call. But number two is the offensive tendencies, now that they've added Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker, have been a lot more, and correct me if I'm wrong, under center runs, which are not something that have been a part of the Andy Reid offense in the Mahomes era at all, because they have not had an under center runner. And now he's adjusting to his personnel and calling plays that play to the strengths of these guys. And I think that that's a huge step in the right direction, because Andy Reid fell in a lot of rankings of offensive play callers this year, and for good reason. I think that he was kind of getting a little bit too comfortable in calling plays that weren't working. And so the fact that he's calling those under center runs and adapting to his personnel gives me optimism for the Chiefs offensive production as a whole.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The Chiefs have had a lot more fundamental football. They're doing a lot of under center runs in their team install, and we're going to see if the Chiefs do anything new. But another team doing stuff new this year is the Arizona Cardinals, who have announced that their rookie quarterback Carson Beck will be starting in the Pro Football Hall of Fame game this Friday. What are your thoughts on what's going down in Canton, Ohio this week?
Yeah, I think obviously it's going to be a great time seeing Larry Fitzgerald, Larry Legend, get his gold jacket. But I think some Cardinals fans are curious as to what Carson Beck may have, considering that he could be a candidate to take over as the starting quarterback if Jacoby Brissett does not pan out for the Cardinals. I will certainly be watching the Cardinals offense and how Carson Beck commands it. But I think that he is overshadowing some pretty interesting storylines that I wanted to get your thoughts on too. One of them being the guy on the other side, former first-round pick Kenny Pickett is starting. It's kind of similar to what happened last year where everyone was talking about some of the Detroit rookies, but nobody was giving much thought to Trey Lance, the former first-round pick, starting an NFL game, albeit the Hall of Fame game. But I think that we could get another good look at the viability of Kenny Pickett as a backup and see if he still kind of has it. But I think the quarterbacks are hardly what you should be looking at. I think you should be looking at both Monroe Freeling, the first-round pick for the Panthers, and Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks was a early-round pick running back for the Panthers who has been sidelined with an injury both seasons. So this is his third year. He has not played much in the NFL. Reports from training camp say that he's looking really, really good. He's going to get a lot of playing time to get back up to NFL speed, and he could be fantasy viable as the backup to Chuba Hubbard. Will be interesting to see Brooks as well. So just some players to watch. He's certainly fantasy viable. Brooks would be. Most of these players won't be, but I think that those are some names to keep an eye on for sure. Also, I think we will get to see some action from Jeremiah Love, the first running back taken in this draft. Carson Beck's a starter. Jeremiah Love is currently repping behind Tyler Algier and James Conner in Arizona. I think that's just like rookie training camp shenanigans. Honestly, he should be the starter, but I think he'll get some reps in an NFL game and the Hall of Fame games too. So look out for those guys.
Yeah, and I'll talk about kind of what I've seen in my weird little corner of the Arizona Cardinals fandom. I say weird because it's odd that I'm in any corner of Arizona Cardinals fandom. But a lot of them think that Jeremiah Love not starting is more of just to kind of build him in. I don't think it's a rookie shenanigan or a rookie hazing or anything. It's just like, hey, he hasn't been in the NFL. Tyler Algier does have a good veteran experience. Learn under him this preseason, and then by the time the regular season starts, he'll be the main production guy. In terms of their quarterback situation, I don't know if curiosity is the right word to discuss what Cardinals fans are thinking about Beck. Nervousness is the word that I would use. Cardinals fans are very nervous about Carson Beck because I feel like the vibe of Carson Beck wasn't good. I know he was in the national championship game last year, but it just a lot of people thought he's way too old to be a rookie, and he wasn't looking good with prospects. There's a lot of nerves with Carson Beck. So this is Carson Beck's chance to ease those nerves in Arizona. And if he can complement it with the run game too, then all the more reason to start to feeling some hope down in the desert.
Yeah, and I feel like with Carson Beck, obviously he wasn't a first-round pick like some of these guys, but with the recent changes in college football, we've seen some of the older quarterbacks come in and look more pro-ready and have success. Bo Nix is an example. I think even to a certain extent, Michael Penix Jr. before injuries caught up with him. I think that most Falcons fans were, excited by his play. I think Beck could be the next kind of iteration of that at being a 25-year-old rookie himself. Obviously, his time for development is now. He needs to get up to speed as quickly as possible because he doesn't have the 4 years of runway that a guy like Anthony Richardson would have or that a guy like Cam Ward would have, for example.
Yeah, and you might be right. I feel like college quarterbacks are also not. I don't think all of them are coming out well. I think it's extremely hit or miss with just their
Agreed.
play. Because yeah, you're going to get a guy like Nix. I think you're also going to get You're also getting guys like Tua that played well for a couple years and then just did not do well after that.
That's fair. I was more focusing on those guys that were older. Like Tua's
Gotcha.
28. Tua's only 3 years older right now than Carson Beck is. And so I don't know what age Tua was exactly when he got drafted in 2020, but I think he was close to 21, 22. So that's not very old.
Yeah,
so I think
I'll give you that.
these older
I'll give you
quarterbacks are
that.
certainly giving me more reason to watch them because they're less raw. And especially a guy like Carson Beck, who threw 82 college touchdown passes to just 30 interceptions. That's a lot of game experience, a lot more than guys like Tua or other younger quarterbacks may have had.
It will be very interesting to see. And I like your take on watching the rookie tackle in Carolina, Freeling. He's kind of a name that I've forgotten a little bit. Maybe it's just because he went to Carolina. But yeah, I mean, he was someone that we had really high on our draft boards. I think at some point in our mocks, we had him at like pick 10. So I hope he does really well. I'm really hoping that the offensive line in Carolina does well. There's even a K-Stater on the offensive line that we got to watch as well.
And who is that?
It's Sam Heck.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was a K-State
right.
offensive lineman. I'm not sure if he's in starting contention by any means, but he will definitely get playing time. And if I'm not mistaken, and I could very well be mistaken, I think he's going to be the first K-State offensive lineman to be in the Hall of Fame game since Dalton Reisner back in 2019.
Yeah,
just your random K-State history for you.
I am pumped about that because I always, obviously Cooper Beebe was a huge success in the NFL. So I'm excited for the next K-State O-lineman to go out there and prove that K-State is an offensive lineman NFL factory. But that's a good call out. If you don't know that about Tyler and I, we are both Kansas State alumni. So EMA all the way. But I think that about wraps it up for us. Make sure that you find some time on Thursday to enjoy a little bit of the Hall of Fame game. We've all been clamoring for football, so even if it is crappy preseason football, just enjoy it. It's so good to be back, guys, and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.
Appreciate you guys.